Hello, everybody. My name is Allie, and you definitely don't know who I am. If you do know who I am because you've just known me in real life, then hi. It's crazy that you somehow found this video because I'm not actually like trying to promote it or anything. But for the people who may come across this video and you don't know me, today you're going to get to know me. And you're gonna get to know me because I'm about to overshare a little bit. Um, Today, what we're going to be talking about is love. I'm going to be talking about my experience with love. I'm going to be talking about different types of love that I've experienced in my life. And I suppose my philosophy on love, I feel like the subject of love is if you hear cars outside while I'm talking, please try and ignore it as much as possible because there's nothing I can do about that. But I feel like love is a subject that a lot of people have questions about these days. I feel like a lot of people don't. I feel like a lot of people struggle with love, and I feel like a lot of people struggle with the feeling of like what love really is. I feel like I see a lot of videos these days of women and men both talking about how they are struggling with finding like a partner, or like they don't want to be single, or just like struggles and breakups. And I am in my like mid 20s, so I'm definitely at that age to be, experiencing different types of love. But there's different aspects of love that I feel like should be carried throughout life at different points. Um, and then other parts of love that you should let go as you get older. And to preface, I am 24 years old, so I'm obviously not wise enough to know a lot about love, but I do have, of course, my fair share of experience with love in, again, different forms. So it's something that makes us human. I think I do have some notes in front of me as well, so if you see me looking at my computer, it's because I'm reading my notes. Um, but what makes us unique as humans is our ability to build communities and gain knowledge from each other, especially from like outside of someone who might be our friend or our family. We can go online and like also identify with people on there. And so that's kind of what I'm hoping I can do today, is that I can share my stories, I can talk about my perspectives on things, and of course, you can take everything with a grain of salt. You don't have to apply or believe in anything that I say, but I do have a degree in creative writing, and I do have an interest in talking about. That's my cat, Yue. If you see her running. Right. If you see her running around in the background, that's what's going on. But I do have an experience with, or like a want to share my stories and like share my words. I think there's so much power in words. I'm honestly in love with words. I think words are so beautiful and impactful, and I think I have a true talent in my words, and so I want to use them in a way where I want to like open discussion and make people not feel so alone. So that's what I'm doing today. I hope that my words will be able to impact somebody, whoever comes across this video. But let's get into it. Part one, childhood. When I was a child, I fell in love with the world first. I fell in love with more than just Earth, though. When I was very young, my older sister, the first thing that she ever did for me was sit me down and teach me how to read. She taught me how to read before I was even in kindergarten. She taught me how to read probably before I was even in preschool. And honestly, that is a debt that I don't think I'll ever be able to repay her for. Um, And in a lot of ways, what she did for me by introducing me to reading is what brings me honestly to this video today. It made me fall in love with words as well as the world around me and the people in the world and all of their different qualities that they have. Because we all have different qualities, but we all share similar qualities. Even if we come from completely different sides of the world, we can still find like similar traits pretty much with everyone in the world. We are all human at the end of the day. And her teaching me to read really like solidified my strong feelings of empathy and justice and loyalty and honesty that I still carry with me today. And like I said, I'll never be able to repay her for that because it's literally brought me to where I am today. When I was a child, I was very inquisitive. I loved to explore. I was never inside unless I was reading. And when I look back on my childhood, I remember just the glaring sun. I remember running barefoot on the gravel in my driveway or on the wooden deck in my backyard and getting splinters stuck in my foot, but that never stopped me from running around. And I remember so much laughter. And this is probably from the ages, I would say, of like 1 to 5 or 6, probably 6 or 7 is kind of where I feel most of these memories come from. But I just remember so much laughter with families, with friends. I remember sitting out on our deck at night and pointing out the Big Dipper, which is the constellation in the sky. Even though I was getting bit up by mosquitoes, I would spend hours out there. And then at night, I would be in my bedroom and I would be looking at the moon. And every season always brought something new for me. I was like soaking in everything. Every blade of the spring grass was precious to me. The burst of summer cherry tomatoes was divine, and I love cherry tomatoes to this day. It's probably my favorite vegetable. And the hot chocolate that I drank during the winter time was always a blessing, because I grew up in New York on Long Island, so very harsh winters up there, very cold. But the world was magical to me. There was like so much abundance and so much. It wasn't like we were very wealthy, but it was more like we were middle class, but it felt like there was so much like other than material goods, it was like just nature and the people. I was just in love with all of that. And I was raised with no religion. So I was never baptized or introduced into any religion, but I still felt such a deep connection and so much love for the people around me. Like, so much was, I feel like I had so much to give back to what I was receiving. And I remember vividly, like, every Sunday morning, my dad would be playing Breakfast with the Beatles on the stereo, and my mom would be blowing up my swimmies, so I can go swim in the waters, in the Long Island Bay or in the Sound. Not really, the Sound probably not because it's very rocky, but definitely the Bay, or in the pools. But it's my belief from all of these descriptions that I've just given you is that the foundation of love is built in childhood. This is when we learn how to trust the ones who are supposed to care for us. And I trusted everyone and I loved everything deeply. But I didn't know that this type of love that I had gotten so used to would eventually be working against me. Part 2, adolescence. So like I said in the first part, in childhood, we were middle class. And I had all of this childish hope and love for the world. But I was pretty blind to what was going on under the surface until it all really came out. Fair warning, from here on out, I'm probably going to be talking about some pretty heavy topics. So I'm going to be talking about alcoholism, abuse, all those sorts of things, abuse in like every form. So if you're not comfortable with that, I completely understand. But we're going to move forward from here into that. In truth, my mother was a functioning alcoholic, and my parents got divorced when I was around 11 or 12 years old. And at that point, she wasn't functioning anymore. My dad left for a few years as well. He would pop in occasionally, but there would always be fights, very violent fights and screaming matches when he would come to our house. And it was hard. I remember like getting off the bus from school in elementary school, and my mom would just be like wasted in the living room, like passed out on the living room couch, and I would have to like pretend everything was normal. And that's what I did. I wanted to return to the normalcy that I had grown accustomed to. And I would give so much of myself for my parents. Whenever they were fighting, I would debase myself and I would scream myself hoarse. And I just wanted them to listen to me, for them to stop fighting, to stop drinking, to stop breaking things. And they never listened to me, but I continued to give and give and give just so that I could get to the sense of normalcy again. There's this one specific memory that always makes me really emotional, so I'm really gonna try to keep it together here. This is like one of my main things that always gets to me, but a lot of the times when they were fighting, there would be something that would be broken. And I remember this one time, it was, I think, around Christmas, and someone threw a casserole dish, and it was like a family heirloom casserole dish, and it broke. I can't remember if it was my dad or my mom, who knows. And that night, it was late in the night, and I was going to fix this casserole dish. So I took out Gorilla Glue, and the oven light was on in the kitchen because I didn't want anyone else to wake up. And I was like 12, 13 years old, there with the Gorilla Glue, trying to glue this casserole dish back together. I didn't have the expertise. I didn't have the power to fix this dish. But I persisted. I wouldn't stop. I would put on a piece of the casserole dish, and it would stick, and it would fall off. And I was so sure that by fixing this dish, I would be able to fix my family. That sacrificing my time and my energy, I was going to be able to fix my family. And obviously, I couldn't. I was never able to fix that casserole dish, but I kept giving so I could fix it. And for a few years after this and through middle school, I developed really bad anxiety. I couldn't be in loud places. I couldn't be in crowded rooms. I couldn't be in places with really bright lights. I stopped going to school for a while. And eventually, like, my sister, who taught me how to read, came to check on me, and she knew that I was lying about all my excuses of why I wasn't in school. So she was like, you have to leave. And I was like, what? And she's like, you're living with me. And she took me away from that house for a few months. And I got better. I went back to school, and she was the sister that taught me how to escape. She taught me how to escape when I was a child, to escape into books, and she taught me how to actually leave and to build up that courage to leave that home. Eventually, she was like, I have to move. And I was like, oh, great. She was like, yeah, our mom's low-key, like, threatening to call the cops for CPS, so you have to go live there again. And I was like, okay. And I was better. Like, I was able to handle everything again. I was older. She gave me the tools. She was like, you can reach out to me if you need anything. Sorry, my voice was getting like really shaky, and I was like, this cannot be good to listen to. But she gave me the tools to leave. And I remember, like, she had left some stuff at our childhood home where my mom lived, and she would write, I found these, like, notes that she made when she was in high school, where she was, like, talking to her friend in class. And I remember reading this note where she was like, I'm so worried for Allie. I'm so worried for her because I don't want her stuck in that house. They're really, like, violent and manipulative and all these things. It's not a safe environment for her. And her friend was, like, reassuring her, like, you're doing everything you can. Like, she knows how much you appreciate her. But that's real love. But that was real love. That was love where she didn't ask for anything in return. That was unconditional love. But if she does happen to see this video, what the fuck? I don't know why I'm so emotional. But I just want to say thank you. Thank you for getting me out and saving me. Me trying to be calm, cool, collected. I've noticed that a lot of the times when I get emotional, I smile. When I get emotional about something, I start smiling, and I'm like, I look insane. My face gets so red. My face is fully red right now. What the fuck? Okay. Lock in. But before I left where I grew up, I met somebody. Part 3, young adulthood. So, as you can tell, I'm a pretty emotional person. I promise, like, honestly, I'm pretty good at keeping my emotions in check around other people. But I also, like, when I start crying, I start crying. So, bear with me here. And please be patient with me in this next part that we're going to be talking about. It's still pretty hard for me to be distant enough to talk about my next few years. This is going to be covering essentially like 16 through 23, I'll say. 16 to 23-ish. So, young adulthood. I'm going to vocalize what I can with my words, but it's going to be a little difficult for me. When I was 17, I started dating someone for the first time ever. I never had been in a relationship with someone before. Honestly, like, no one ever really showed interest in me. And so I never dated anyone, until I was 17, and I started dating someone. We ended up dating for 6 years after we met. So I was 17 in 2019. So if you do the math, yes, we did only break up a few months ago. So this is real fresh for me. And this is honestly what is bringing me to film this video today, is that I need to be honest with myself. When I entered this relationship, I was still the teenager who was giving too much of herself, and I wanted to fix the people in my life. I thought that what I had found in this relationship would not require this of me. But as the years went on, I honestly realized that I had stepped into another version of a love that I already knew too well. There were red flags in the beginning of this relationship, as people would say, but I overlooked them, to be completely honest with you. I was a child, so there was jealousy, there was anger, there was emotional manipulation, broke up once. I should have kept it that way, honestly, because I thought that I was in the wrong. I thought that, yeah, I must be doing something wrong in this relationship, when in reality, there was insecurity that was on my side. But you have to understand that this is what I knew of love. And it was easy for me, easy as breathing, to just fall back into the same rhythms. And he offered an escape. And he wasn't just that. I mean, there were, of course, everyone will say this after or when they're in a toxic relationship, or they'll say it afterwards. They say, oh, there were good moments and there were bad moments. And honestly, like, almost every good moment has a bad moment reflection. But for me, this was someone who loved me, like, showed interest in me, who wasn't stumbling and drunk all the time. This wasn't someone I had to take care of. It was feeling like someone would finally be able to coherently take care of me. And that was kind of a step up, you know what I'm saying? Like, from when I was going there, I was like, yeah, this is sure. I also thought I knew intimate love at this time. For me, it felt so mature, you know, to hold hands and go on dates and, oh, is that your boyfriend? Yeah, that's my boyfriend. I'm not single. Fall asleep in each other's arms. But I really conformed myself to him. I adopted his beliefs, and I agreed with his twisted views on my role in a relationship to be a good, complacent woman. Talking to other guys, like guy friends, not allowed. Hanging out with other friends, suddenly suspicious that I'm doing something unfaithful. And this built up for so long, over so many years, 6 years, that near the end of the relationship, I started giving up my own values. I was keeping secrets. I was holding information back so that he wouldn't get angry at me. And when it would come up in arguments, it was never, it was always, you're doing something wrong, and not how is he doing something wrong? I had to be the perfect one. And if I wasn't perfect, if I ever stepped out of his view, I was demoralized, I was cursed at, I was abused, I was called awful names, and I cried after every argument. Before I get into this next part, I want to make it abundantly clear to anyone listening to this video, watching this video, that if your partner is making you cry, letting you go to sleep crying, physically abusing you, emotionally manipulating you, not prioritizing your time and your needs, they don't love you. And this is so hard. This is still something so hard. And it's why it took me so long to come to terms with this. And it had to get to the point that it did, where I didn't feel love anymore, that I was like, what is happening? Like, I noticed I didn't even care anymore to argue. Um, and during these arguments, before I had really lost touch with everything, I would be screaming again. Like how I was when I was a child, trying to make my parents listen to me. I found myself there again. I was screaming, pulling at my hair, crawling on the ground, and I was flinching when things were thrown. I mean, what? I was debasing myself. I remember one time, during one argument, a glass was broken, a drinking glass, my drinking glass, because now I live alone. I had moved to Texas to get my degree, but also to be with this person. So now I had my own place, and I felt like I was finally able to do my own things. And these arguments still kept happening. And I remember he broke one of my glasses. And it reminded me of the casserole dish. And anytime something of mine is broken by somebody else, I couldn't fix it. Like, I couldn't fucking fix anything. Everything around me kept being broken. And I was like, why is it always me at the end of the day? How did I find myself here again? And I just lost touch. I lost complete touch with love. If he would do something to hurt me, like he would post another girl on his story to hurt me after an argument, or hang out with a girl at the gym without me, and not tell me about it. I didn't even care anymore. I mean, I just knew I couldn't live a life like this. And I remember, like, spending time with him and laying on his chest, and I was thinking, is there a future where I won't be doing this anymore? And I wasn't scared. And I knew that it was gone. I knew that the relationship was over. And one day, after another inane fight where I did something wrong, I decided that it was time for a break. For the first time, I decided that it was time for a break. And I haven't seen him since. After that argument, and you want to know what the argument was? It was that a manager of mine had gotten Dutch Bros for work. And I had brought the Dutch Bros home. Dutch Bros, by the way, is coffee. It's like a coffee place. I brought the Dutch Bros home, and I had it on my living room table. And then he came in my apartment because he was here for lunch or something like that. And I was on my lunch break. And he looked at the coffee cup, and he was like, "You didn't tell me you got that. You didn't tell me that. Why? Because a guy got it for you?" And I'm like, my manager got it for me, first of all. And why do I have to tell you everything that I get? Why do I have to tell you? And he's like, because you know that I like Dutch Bros. What? I was like, and I was just leaning like this on the counter, like, and I didn't care. I was like, yeah, we need to take a break. Yeah, we need to take a break. And normally, like, when we would fight and he'd be like, yeah, I just need some distance, I need some time, I would be like, no, please, like, I need to see you tomorrow, I want to see you for this, I want to see you. I was like, okay. Like, I was so done. And that's how you know it's over. I was so done. And as someone who was so used to giving and giving and giving so much of myself, I just had nothing left to give. He exhausted me. And if he sees this video and he wants to say that I misconstrued things or I said something wrong, you have no power over me anymore. I could not care less. I hope you find your perfect woman who perfectly does everything for you in the ways that you want her to. That's for you. That's for you. I'm past that. And that was my last 6 years of love that I have been experiencing. I'm surprised I didn't cry. But I think I've cried myself out, honestly. And I think this shows how past it I am. But I also knew that it was honestly time for me to reevaluate love. And that brings us here. Part 4 today. This is a part where we wrap it all up in a bow and we discuss, what did we learn? A major flaw, a major theme, you could say, that I find in every single one of my instances of love is the idea of a fantasy. In childhood, I had a love for the fantastical. I would escape from reality with my books, and I had an image of perfection that was only attainable through my books or through my very limited viewpoint of the world. I mean, as a child, of course, you're gonna have unbounded, that's how it's supposed to be. You have so much trust, you have so much love to give the world. And I don't want to necessarily say it's a flaw, but I'll say it's a theme that I had in my childhood. But then in adolescence, my next fantasy, but I had a belief that if I fixed the people in my life, I would be loved again the way that I thought the world was. And that's just, I didn't understand the concept of other people's actions are not my responsibility. What other people do is not a reflection on me. Other people's choices is not a fault of my own. And in adolescence, that's really like something that I'm still working on, and I'm doing a lot better. When someone's frustrated with me, when someone's angry, I separate myself. I say, this person is angry or upset at something that happened with them. And if they take it out on me, that's not my problem. As long as I know that I'm being true to myself, I'm being respectful, I'm being kind, I'm being empathetic, that is my value, and that is not going to determine my worth. And that's like a huge thing that I've been working on. And then in young adulthood, I had a fantasy that love was obsession and love was physical intimacy. And that's not true. I didn't really talk in the last part about physical intimacy and obsession, but I will talk about it now in this part because I think it's very important. But what I know now of love is that love is understanding. And I will get into that further. But first I want to talk about the idea that love is obsession, or that the delusion that love is obsession and love is physical intimacy. And I think this is something that happens a lot for people who are younger, because obviously when you're younger, you're a lot more hormonal, you feel a lot more stronger emotions, so it feels more intense, I suppose the word is, intense with love. But oftentimes, on top of this, we also fall in love with an image. We fall in love with, first of all, an idea that we think we know what love is supposed to be, or what we think love should be, or we also fall in love with an image of a person, but not who that person really is. And I think that was a major flaw in my relationship as well, my, like, physical relationship that I had in young adulthood, is that he was in love with an image of me, and when that image didn't sync up, he was upset and frustrated with me. And all the time, you know, when you ask someone, like, what do you love about me? He would always say, like, oh, you're pretty, oh, you're funny. But I know I have other qualities beyond that. He loved to call me sexy all the time, and as you get older and as you mature, I feel like the idea of sexiness only into a 6-year relationship, I mean, yes, I like to feel sexy now and again, but I want a more real, intimate connection, if that makes sense. And we also like will hold up our values and our thoughts up to this image. And when it doesn't match, we can often feel disappointed. I feel like this is the best example I can give of this is also like a parasocial relationship where you see the qualities in someone that you like. Maybe they're attractive, maybe they're funny, but you don't fully know every version of that person. And you're in love with an image, but not a person. And when I'm loved again, I want to be loved for every version of myself that exists. If you think about it, the only person who really knows who you are is yourself. You yourself know your best qualities, and you also know what qualities you look for in another person. And there's the work version of you, there's the leisure version of you, there's your friend version of you, there's a family version of you, and all these different people in all those different groups have a view of you that is different. There's a video version of me that even my friends might not know, because I'm being more open and more candid and more real because I'm just talking to myself, essentially. But when I'm loved again, I want someone to understand that I'm like a broken mirror. There's so many different angles and reflections of who I am based off what I love. I want someone to fall in love with all these different versions of me. And I feel like a lot of people often say, like, you can't choose which part of someone to love. And I feel like with love, so far in my life, that's all I've experienced. I've been loved as when I was younger for being the quiet, shy child who didn't do any wrong. I was also loved for being an overgenerous fixer, and I was loved for being sexy and an image. But I've rarely ever been loved for all my qualities, like my humor, my intelligence, my sarcasm, my anger, my sadness. I feel all these emotions, all the ranges of human emotion, and I've never been loved for all of those things. I feel like there's always been some part of me that's been chosen to love, but not me. And there's parts of me that are like the rough edges of a broken mirror. And I want someone to love those parts too, because I'm gonna have my bad days. And I can't have someone who's gonna make my day worse, to be frank. And I want someone who will stand beside me, even when I want to push everything away. To summarize, I will say this. I think to be seen is to be loved. And when I'm loved next, I want to be seen. If you are going through anything that I've described here in any parts of my life, because things are not linear, things don't all follow the same track for everybody, I want you to know that I'm here. I understand. I've been there too. I know the struggles it is with love. And if you've experienced something completely different than what I've said here, then I want you to say that too. Nobody is perfect as well. Nobody is a perfect person. And you can't always imagine that everyone is going to be perfect all the time. There's going to be bad moments. There's going to be great moments. But even in your worst of moments, it shouldn't feel like the bottom, like the pit of hell, honestly. It shouldn't feel like that with love. There should be always, even in your bad days, there's still someone to support you and to be in your corner. And that's pretty much my video for today. I hope you all have enjoyed watching this video. If you have an idea of what you want me to talk about next, I will draft another script for it. I have some ideas. I kind of wanted to talk about the idea of waiting. And I mean by that is like, there's so many different versions of waiting. There's like waiting for a call, waiting for someone to text you, waiting for results of something, just waiting for work to end, waiting to meet somebody. There's so many different versions of waiting, and I was kind of gonna do something with that. But listen, I've been very candid here today. I've been very open. So I feel a little tired. Honestly, I'm a little exhausted. But thank you all so much for getting to know me a little bit today. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.